Yep, that is 2.8 second reload on a Des Moines. Now you're probably wondering, how on earth did I get that? And well, if you look at this situation, we don't have it for very long. But we did have it, a sub 3-second reload on the Des Moines. That is double what this ship launched with. Original Des Moines had around a 6-second reload. So the DPM you can get on this thing these days is pretty insane. So how do I do that? Well, it's by using every single possible thing we can do to get our reload down. That includes things like having Halsey as our commander, getting things like Confederates, and of course running reload mod. That's just a given, right? Given this DPM build. But also we're increasing our concealment as much as possible, trying to make use of the 8% reload buff you can get out of a commander skill, assuming somebody's spotted within your concealment. This is not the best build, for sure. This is a meme build and is not going to work in most games, but it's a lot of fun. And that's what's important. For me, at least, you saw probably my Republic build where I was getting a 13 second reload on the Republic, and that made the ship a lot more fun for me to play. Similarly, I don't play my Des Moines all that often these days, just because there's so many other ships that I have to play that I just kind of forget about it. It just kind of slips into the back of my mind and I just forget. And this gives me that fun factor again. Having these incredibly awkward, difficult to navigate close quarters scenarios is just fun. It incentivizes me pushing in just to get these reload buffs activated, and I've had a blast trying to survive as a Des Moines at close ranges, to battleships, to other cruisers that can get on my broadsides, destroyers YOLO torping me, just whatever it comes to, it's a good time. And honestly, I've been doing pretty good as well. A Des Moines with this fast reload, you can just see how devastating this armor piercing is. It is ridiculous. And even without all of our buffs, right, we don't have a Confederate yet in this one, we're getting a pretty good reload. We're around that 4-second mark, which for Des Moines guns is pretty terrifying. Just ripping up this curve first here. Now, I do misplay, obviously. I'm never going to play every situation perfectly. I should have just kept reversing. I should have kept doing what I was doing. I was afraid of the Holland coming around my flank. You can see me look over to the side, wondering where he's coming from, what is he doing. And I just went a little bit too early. It was enough to give the Holland the ability to torp me. And in an attempt to dodge as many torps as possible, we end up flat broadside to the curve first. And of course, we die to that. Makes sense. But a really good result anyway. That was 150k damage in an incredibly short amount of time. And more importantly, I had a really fun time with it. And that is really what counts here. I get a little bit tired of the long-range, campy, HE spammy meta. So getting into these close-range situations where, sure, you're using HE some of the time, but your AP becomes a deadly threat, that is really, really, really nice. Something the Des Moines obviously is going to struggle with is submarines, though. This is not something this ship deals with well at all. You've got some mediocre anti-submarine warfare planes, and unfortunately for me, I'm not used to using them on cruisers at this moment, so I wait a little bit too long to get them out. And this sub right underneath me, actually, I can't do any damage to him. As funny as that sounds. Now, importantly, we are hanging on to our damage control. This guy obviously wants to surface with a double ping and just citadel me to death, right? That makes complete sense. I've played subs before. This is what I would be doing in this scenario. So we have to save our damage control for the moment that he surfaces and launches the torpedoes. We can survive a couple torps as long as they don't citadel us. And that's what we do. We do eat half our health pool, but we don't die because we damage controlled that double ping. And at least for now, we're not even flooding because we timed our damage control correctly. Just trying to stay on top of this guy, trying to keep him spotted. I do think it's a little bit weird that subs can go completely undetected even though I'm right on top of him, and that's just because he went to maximum depth. That's one of the changes that they're not making. There are a few good changes they're making to submarines if you watch some of my previous videos on patch notes and balance, but I really do think that if I'm on top of a ship, a submarine, I should just be able to spot it. 2 kilometers, assured detection should be a thing. But the lucky fire does end up taking him out, so we're reasonably okay. And I get very lucky in this one because this gearing wants to do some team play and drops me a smokescreen. I probably would have died here given that there's a Stalingrad and a battleship out there just waiting to kill me. Or sorry, it's a Venezia. The Ohio is on his way. So a little bit lucky here, but it does illustrate what you can do in a division if you're playing with a friend who's willing to run a smoke up gearing for you. This DPM is nasty for anybody. Nobody's going to want to push this smoke at all. So it does allow our team to get some really solid map control here, forcing the enemies away. But you probably have noticed at this point that I'm running a spotter plane Des Moines. And you might be thinking to yourself, why on earth are you running spotter plane on a Des Moines, one of the best radar ships in the game? Well, that's because our range is so tiny, and our concealment essentially matches our gun range. So having the misfortune of being spotted as soon as somebody gets within 15 kilometers of us, and that's likely going to be a destroyer who's going to be undetected, that means battleships from 20, 25 kilometers are going to start shooting at us. We need that spotter plane to get any sort of long-range fire at anyone. And that'll be in the next game that I'll show you some of the usefulness that that can bring. But playing so close like this, even without a radar, allows us to dramatically impact destroyer fights. We're already up to 4 kills here, and honestly, not a lot of damage. But the damage we have been doing is to priority targets, the low HP destroyers, submarines, that kind of thing. That is what this build can do, even without radar. You are a massive threat just because you're so much closer. If I was running a normal Des Moines build, I'd probably take range mod and radar. I'm probably playing farther back. Sure, I have a radar to get access to some of these smokes some of the time, but my firepower is nowhere near as effective just because I'm so much farther away. That's a Kraken right there, and actually there's a Petro that we ended up cleaning up at the end as well, so that's 6 kills and not even 100,000 damage. Which might look like I just stole a bunch of kills this game, but given the team score and the base XP that I get in this one, I would say they were mostly deserved kills. Some of them, not so much, but mostly. And now on to the final game, which you saw the end of at the very beginning of this video, where yes, in this one we do manage a sub 3 second reload. And that's mostly thanks to Halsey giving us that extra little boost from getting a Confederate. But for now, we're just going to farm some battleships. Bow-on battleships are just going to get absolutely nuked by this ship. It is... it's not even close how good this ship is against battleships who are stuck in a relatively close position where they can't maneuver. Des Moines DPM is insane. Its fire chance is very high given its volume of fire. Maybe not quite as insane as something like a Smolensk or a Colbert, but you gotta remember, these shells pen 32 millimeters of armor, and that means we're getting a lot of alpha damage out as well as these fires. So that combined allows it to be a little bit more effective, in my opinion, than even something like a Smolensk or a Colbert at farming a battleship down. Not completely, obviously, because we don't have the utility of a smokescreen like the Smolensk would have, but if you're just talking about straight DPM, I would consider Des Moines a little bit better even, just because of that ability to full pen other areas of the ship other than the superstructure. And like I said earlier, we do want to use our spotter plane. Scenarios like this happen all the time where a battleship just starts to run away as soon as they're getting farmed by HE spam. And I'm not saying that in a, like, I can't believe he's running away, because obviously that's the correct play, right? I'm a battleship player myself, and I run away all the time, right? Pushing into a Des Moines that's got spotting and he's sitting behind an island, or any cruiser that's like that, is a recipe for disaster. You're going to die to that. But the spotter plane allows us to reach out and continue our fire on this guy for even longer. I'm actually even running the spotter plane commander skill that gives us a shorter duration, but it allows our spotter plane to come up more often. And you can see we still have 20 seconds left on this spotter plane, and the Montana is getting close to leaving our range. I've found that a lot of the times when using spotter plane, I don't actually get the full duration out of it. Usually, the enemy ship has either entered my normal range on my guns, or it's left the spotter plane range as well by the time this shortened duration runs out. And you can see exactly that happened. The Montana was leaving our spotter plane range anyway, so it's more important to get that spotter plane on reload. And this is not a good commander to be moving around on different premium ships, and in fact, this is not a good commander to run assuming you only have a Des Moines or only a few tier 10 ships to play. This is just a fun build that I have come to enjoy just because I have so many ships in this game. I've played this game for 6 years. Of course, I'm going to have a lot of ships. I want to spice up the gameplay every once in a while and play something a little bit different in a bit of a weird way. And we're already up to 106,000 damage in this game, and honestly, our team's pretty much won this one already, so that's why I'm okay with pushing in. You'll see a lot of times that I'll just full send it into a team when the game is basically decided. Either we've lost or we've won. May as well go out on fighting terms, not to delay the game, and also to try and collect as much damage as I possibly can before the game ends. And a match like this is no different. Now, unfortunately, I don't have radar, so I actually can't spot this Ohio. And this Ohio will be coming around behind me. I'm in a great position at the moment to farm these battleships who are sitting at the back of the map, but I just have to worry about that Ohio coming around my backside. Now, probably the correct play here would have been to stay on this island and use it to make sure the Ohio can't shoot me when he comes around the backside of C, but I don't do that. Again, making mistakes, because close quarters combat is not easy to do all the time, and in fact, I was a little bit worried about some of these ships that I was fighting just killing me outright. Conqueror HE hits very hard, and even a Montana can hit pretty hard given a stationary Des Moines. Yes, I have 30mm to bounce, but it doesn't do a great job all the time. So I wanted to reposition, wanted to move, and the spotter plane wasn't being used for range. As you can see, I'm shooting at a gearing at 9 kilometers. I was trying to use it to spot the Ohio, but this island is just a little bit too big to get that spotting in. But we do get a good couple of salvos in on this gearing, and that's when we pop our Confederate. That's the Halsey activation, and here we go. Now we got Ohio on, 40k HP. He overmatches through my stern, gets a really good hit in already, and now we've got 40,000 HP on this Ohio to burn through. And surprisingly, it's going to be pretty close. I'm going to get very, very close to killing this battleship in close quarters. And that's something that I personally wasn't expecting to do, but I think it's down to the insane damage output with this reload. I do commit to staying probably a little bit too broadside just to get my main guns off, and of course I'm grounded, so I'm a very, very easy target to hit. But the fire chance, the alpha damage from these HE shells, and of course we're going to swap to AP. The health he's on before we die, I think it's around 12,000 HP, and I think we get 2 salvos in the air by that time. So there we go, 11,000, we get another 6,000 into him, and I think another 5,000. So we nearly killed that Ohio in the last closing seconds of our life there. Very, very nearly. So yes, overmatch is hard to deal with, but also the DPM of some of these cruisers is insane. So the fact that I got so close to, trading a 1v1 against an Ohio at close range with 40k HP, it's pretty good in my book. So definitely a fun meme build, even though it's not for everyone. This is what I am running. No concealment, because we're trying to make full use of top grade gunner, and it's 8% reload time. I'm also using heavy HE, again, helping with our damage output, both with our HE shells, and making our concealment worse. Adrenaline rush, it's just a must. And getting Superintendent is nice for those heals. Now, I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever used 4 heals with this build, because I've always died or the game's ended. So the DPM is more determining the outcome than anything else, really. Survivability expert, this is permanent health, so maybe a little more useful than the healing from Superintendent, given how aggressive I'm playing. Eye in the Sky, again, very useful for this build, horrible for every other Des Moines build. And Gunfeeder, again, what an amazing skill from the American tree. 75% reduced time to switch shells, which is awesome on a ship like Des Moines. getting Grease the Gears, again, is also very nice, because close quarters combat in a Des Moines can be a little rough, given your turret traverse is pretty slow at, close to 30 seconds, even with Grease the Gears. And I just threw one into incoming fire alert. I wasn't sure what else to get. Maybe last stand, but I don't really lose my engine or rudder. Maybe consumable specialist, but I don't know. Incoming fire alert, sure. Make it very easy to dodge long range shots from people. Although it does get a little bit distracting, admittedly. And here's the upgrades. Pretty standard ones. Outside of maybe steering gears mod 2, you might expect concealment. But again, we're trying to make this as worse as we possibly can, just because of that top grade gunner upgrade. Now, you could run radar with this build still, but I don't know. I think the spotter plane just helps you get that DPM out a little bit easier. You would be a little more useful to your teammates with surveillance radar, but I want that damage output, so that's what I was running with at that point. And I'm using defensive fire, and that's just down to wanting to at least be somewhat able to deal with planes. I'm not going to be able to deal with all of them, but some of them certainly is nice. So that's the Des Moines. You might be wondering, why not Salem? Well, it's because Salem can't run that spotter plane. The heel would be very, very nice to have, but no spotter plane, it kind of ruined it for me a little bit. I wanted that extra range to get this damage output more often, more consistently, at more targets. So thank you very much for watching this one. Bit of a fun video, not really meant to be copied, but if you want to have a good time, this is a bit of a strange one, to say the least. So thanks for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day.